Laila Cunningham joins me, Reform UK Councillor for the Lancaster Gate ward on Westminster City Council. Good afternoon to you.
Hi, Sheila. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Yeah, do you agree that these men, and if so, how many of them, pose this medieval threat to women's safety?
So, when you are charged with a sexual assault in Britain, you go on a sexual offenders register. You're tracked for life, and that register, I believe, is public, right? The point that Sarah, I think, is making is that we don't know these men's history. We're not saying they're all rapists or murderers or terrorists, but the point is we don't know anything about them. And that unknown presents a huge risk. And any government that is serious about protecting its people would take that risk into consideration before placing them in the middle of towns and villages. Just like you would take that into consideration if you're placing a known sexual offender. But they don't.
But the risk it's no greater, is it, than you or I walking past 50 people in a street, 50 men in a street, 50 people in a street, of whom 20, 30, however many are men, and we don't know their sexual history either. We don't know their offending history, but we're still exposed to them.
Well, you're exposed to them walking. You're not living next to them. It's very different.
Well, you
don't
could be.
see them every day.
You might be living next to them.
You don't see them, and you can look that up, but you don't.
You can't always. You can't. I'll tell you what. No, I'll tell you why you can't always look it up, because you're talking about when there are convictions. There are very, very low rates of conviction for sexual assault and rape in this country. Really low rates, not related to the actual numbers of incidents that take place, but the conviction rates where the data is available. And are those men, or men who rape and beat their partners, are they medieval? White British men who've been born here.
I'm not anyone who rapes their partners is medieval and.
Well, that's kind of my point. Are these men specifically medieval, or is any man who rapes and beats a woman
any man
medieval?
Any man.
We've got a fair few of those of our own, haven't we?
100%.
Yeah. So it's not a particularly Muslim problem, is what I'm saying.
No one's denying that British men commit sexual offences, and that's why we want tougher sentencing.
In huge numbers.
And that's why we want tougher sentencing and policing all round. But there's a difference, Sheila. Foreign criminals don't have to be here. They don't have to be housed at the taxpayer's expense. If someone rapes or grooms someone, even if they're if they're not British, they should be deported without delay. I don't know if you saw the government's announcement that you will be deported as soon as possible. What? No, that kind of message does that send. You will be deported as soon as you commit a crime on this soil. And that's the difference. That's just common sense. The defence that we've got our own rapists here is not a defence. That's an argument for fixing both issues.
But terms like foreign-born men is an interesting one, isn't it? Because foreign-born men in this country is a huge swathe of people. My father was a foreign-born man.
So was mine.
Well, there you go. You know, that foreign-born doesn't tell us much, does it, about the individual, how long they've been here, what their roots in the place might be.
Did I say foreign-born?
No, not you. I'm talking about your colleague, your Reform colleague did. And so the reason I raise that is this language is easy to bandy around to leave an overall impression that what you're saying is people in boats, rapists, Muslim men, rapists. You get that's the impression that comes across to a lot of people when this. I'm not saying don't talk about the issues where we see that there are rapists, whether they're Muslim or not. Of course we do. And if they're Pakistani heritage, think of the grooming gangs. If that is a pattern in their particular grooming ring, great, let's talk about it. But the impression left is that your party is saying brown, black, Muslim, more likely to rape a woman, which simply isn't true.
Sheila, look, I'm brown. I'm Muslim myself, and I know fantastic Muslim people. And no, they're not rapists, and they're not. The point.
But can you see how that impression is left?
Perhaps, but you can see from that's not what we mean. Right? What the party is trying to reiterate is that you cannot place men that we have no idea of their history in the middle of towns and centres, wherever they're from, right? They could be from America. You know, if you don't know their history, then you can't place them in towns and villages, because that unknown presents a huge risk. And we've seen it, right? Yes, not all the boat crossings are rapists, but some have been, right? And one is too many. And the fact that people who protest about this and call this out keep getting called far right or extremists is very fun. I'm not saying you did, but there is a narrative.
But just to sort of extrapolate what you said there to say, for example, somebody who comes to visit here for a month from, I don't know, Nepal on holiday, or the Philippines on holiday. Do we test them for criminality before we allow them to come here? Because in the space of a month, somebody from anywhere in the world could be living next door to me, using my neighbour's flat as an Airbnb. Do we do a DR, or whatever it's called, a DRB check on them before they come into the country? We don't, do we?
So this isn't an either or, Sheila. We want to get tough on all predators, British or foreign. And the difference that you're saying is that person who comes on holiday is coming on their own expense. These men are housed by the British taxpayer, and they're paid for by people who are struggling to pay their bills, who are fearing tax rises in September, yet they see next door there's a man who have no idea who he is, who they're paying for to stay in 4-star hotels.
So what do we do? How do we find out? So if we do a check and we find that they're a rapist, clearly that's a problem, and we need to react as strongly as we possibly can. I would agree with that.
You can't do a check. That's the point.
So everybody back immediately. Everybody who claims asylum at the shores, send them all back immediately. If
someone comes on a boat and doesn't have any ID, we have to treat that person as a risk, because that is an unknown. It's just common sense. If someone comes to your house and you rent an Airbnb, no ID, nothing, you're going to be like, you're going to be weary of this person. And my issue is that the government is not weary of them. They are placing them.
So would it be helpful for you as a colleague of people like Sarah Pochin for her to be as specific as you're being? Because she isn't specific. She talks in these general terms, and you know what that can lead to. And we've seen it lead to people being wrongly accused of things, people being attacked simply because they look like a certain type of person. She should be more specific, shouldn't she?
I mean, you can also flip it, right? In avoiding talking about race and Muslim, the Pakistani rape gangs got away with it, right? So you have to be vocal. We can't be scared of pointing out the truth. And as a Muslim, I can tell you...
Well, that's a particular truth, isn't it? Some of them were born in this country.
It's a truth, right? I, as a Muslim, I have a very big problem with radical Islam and Islam. I do. And they give us a bad name, right? So, as you say, Muslims like myself, who are very assimilated, absolutely adore this country, we get tainted with the same brush. And it's very, very different. For instance, wearing the burqa, nothing in the Quran says you should wear a burqa. This is a tradition. It's Wahhabism. And it's not to do with religion. And that is the problem. We have let into this country people who don't like this country, who want to change this country, and have brought with them radical Islamism, right? And that is the problem.
Although I know plenty of people who would... You said the burqa, did you? I don't know people who wear the burqa, but I know people who would wear the hijab.
I don't know people who wear... hijab's different.
You regard that as different, yeah?
Hijab is different. The Quran says you have to be modest. And I think, it's just like, the Jewish people wear the wig. There's a modesty aspect to it. But there is nowhere that says you have to cover your face. And in some Middle Eastern countries, it's actually banned in government buildings, in courtrooms, because nobody knows who's
identification,
behind it. Yeah. And I have an issue with that. That is not... You come to this country, you need to come and assimilate. You don't come and you don't set up Sharia law. You don't force down Islamophobia laws. There are countries where you can have that. And you're welcome to go.
That's an important conversation, and I'm happy to have it with you and to expand on it another time. But it's not quite the same as what Sarah Pochin did yesterday, is it? Which is to really point a finger at everybody in those boats and say, "Oh, rapist."
It's not about pointing the boat. It's the fact that they could be racist because we don't know anything about them, and some of them have proven to be racist. Worse, they've proven to be child rapists, and they've been put in centres. The government has endangered that one victim, or that 2 or 3, that child that was sexually abused is as a result of government policy and government decisions. If they had placed them away from villages, not in the centre, and taken that unknown into consideration, I'm sorry to say, but those children would not have been abused by them.
So do you support Kemi Badenoch's... I'm not sure which children you're referring to, but just to be clear, there were a number of court cases going on, so we'll throw the word allegedly in there.
Yes, of course.
Do you support Kemi Badenoch's calls for camps to be established again for all asylum seekers?
I support leaving the ECHR and deporting criminals and illegal migrants immediately. I know that Kemi Badenoch has said she's thinking about leaving the ECHR. I don't know what's there to think about. We've had it for decades. If they haven't made their decision, their mind made up now, then they never will. We are very clear. We have actually the best judicial system in the world. We have human rights embedded in our judicial system. And frankly, it's the British way. We are kind, forgiving and accepting. We don't need a court in Europe telling us what and what we can't do, because that endangers our people.